Welcome to the Philip Wiley Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Philip Wiley.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Philip Wiley Show. Today I'm excited to be joined by Noah King. Noah and I work together Horizon 3 AI, and when I was looking for guests for the show, one of our founders recommended Noah, and Noah's got a pretty cool story because you see a lot of people that get into pen testing, the offensive security side. They come from a lot of different backgrounds, but his is kind of interesting, and so I'm going to let him share that with us today. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So you want to hear hacker journey story? And
Yeah.
that's that's a good one though. I love that question because I remember kind of sharing it. So my background, to kind of back up before we get to the hacker journey story, where did I come from? I was in sales for a long time. So I was a salesperson selling software, and then kind of got sick of selling. Didn't like having a quota and feeling like I was going to be axed every year. So my wife got into engineering and she went to like a coding boot camp. She learned a lot of .NET framework, things like that. I saw her having fun with it, and I was like, I might join a boot camp as well just to see. If anything, it will make me better at my job because I was selling technical software. But I ended up really liking it a lot better. And I learned a lot of web app development. So I did the UNC coding boot camp and went through that. I quit sales. I actually took a pay cut to get into development at first, just to get my experience, my feet wet. After I did that for a while, I jumped to a different couple of companies. But then I came to Horizon 3 as a senior software engineer. And once I was at Horizon 3, I was mainly working on the front end, a lot of our portal, JavaScript, web application type infrastructure, and teaching coding at the coding boot camp. And, I came into Horizon 3 and just saw all the awesomeness that everybody was doing, hacking servers, breaking things. And I was getting a little tired of building things. I really wanted to be on the opposite edge of breaking them. And so I talked to Tony. I talked to some of the other guys at Horizon 3 who were already in that position and kind of asked them, where do I get started? They put out a coding challenge for an exploit developer. And I think it was like some obfuscated Java code that you had to like decompile. And then you had to read the code and write an exploit to capture the flag. And I didn't know what I was getting into. I'd never done a capture the flag or looked at any of those things before, but I knew how to write code. And I actually wrote the first exploit in Node.js, so JavaScript. I was able to submit the flag and get it. And they were kind of like, you're onto something here. So you should look into it more. From there, I just got really interested. I did a lot of hack the box, just kind of starting out, getting guided tutorials. And then from there, I was like, well, I already am a teacher for the coding boot camp at UNC. They had a cybersecurity one. So I transitioned and became a teaching assistant. So I could just kind of take the class for free, also help people. So I did that. I did some teaching for the cybersecurity boot camp. I did hack the box. And then I went for my OSCP last year. So I think it was about 10 months it took me to do my OSCP. I really kind of started from a software development background, and then I moved into security more once I, had that foundation. Did the OSCP last year, passed that on the first go. So I was thankful I didn't have to stay up in there 48 hours. Just now I'm working at Horizon 3 and just doing offensive security, breaking servers, and it's great.
Very cool. So what type of stuff are you doing? Because I know you're involved with that. So what are you guys doing, building automation for different types of attacks? Is that kind of what you do? Or
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that the team works on and covers, different specialties such as cloud or Kubernetes or we have different implants or remote access tool. So you hack a box, put an implant on the machine. We have different teams that work on different segments. But really, it is automating and making everything autonomous. Instead of having to pay for some pen testers to come in, run everything manually, orchestrate and put this whole product together that you can drop in a network on a Docker container. It goes out there, it probes the network, it finds all different types of vulnerabilities, starts to chain them together. And, we have a lot of different things. What I mainly focus on myself is the phishing pen test. So I do a lot with making the JavaScript, making deceptive login pages to capture creds and send them back to us. So that's one area that's really interesting, social engineering and phishing. But I also do a lot of vulnerability management, looking at emerging threats that are happening on the internet. For example, today, there was a new vulnerability that just dropped for Progress Move It. Whenever we see new vulnerabilities, we kind of spin up and start researching it, assessing customers, figuring out how to exploit it and write an exploit and put it into the product so all customers can use it. So it's really cool. You kind of hack it and automate it and write the whole script, and then many people can use it and consume it afterwards. So yeah, that's where a lot of my focus has currently been.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And that's an area that I can see really growing because more people are trying to automate this stuff because you just have to really, really scale. And whenever I was interviewing in Horizon 3, it really amazed me what was being done autonomously, because being a pen tester, even going through and running one of the pen tests, seeing all this stuff that's going on in the background, these are things I didn't think were actually possible, because I worked for teams and we would take like a wrapper script and put together several different tools, do like Nmap scans, Eyewitness to get screen captures of the web logins, and then upload the Nessus file or upload the Nmap output to Nessus to scan that. Just seeing some of what we were doing, it was very kind of limited, but to see how much is being automated, it's pretty amazing. And it's one of those things too that we really need is the automation, because if you look at pen testing, once upon a time, you didn't have vulnerability scanners, you didn't have exploit tools like Metasploit. It was a lot more manual and had to use other tools. And so, you wouldn't think of doing a pen test now without some of those tools, because there's so much more to test. Because at one time, companies didn't have as many assets to test. And so they really need to be able to do this to scale. And so I know if I worked somewhere, I'd love to have had Node Zero in the environment to be able to help scale and take the boring stuff away, because some of the things it does is some of the stuff that pen testers don't want to mess with, and able to scale your team. Because, I worked at companies where we had like a 13-person pen test team, and PCI at the time was requiring 1 pen test per year. Now it requires like 2. And we weren't getting through all the pen tests that we needed to get done. So having something like this would have helped us accomplish that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressed me how much we've built, and Horizon 3 has been around for 4.5 years almost. Just in that time frame of what all we've achieved, starting from scratch, and then the attacks just become more and more complex. So I see attacks where we phish people, and the funny thing with phishing in that pen test is we put in a little extra snippet on the login page. So when you submit your username and your password, it says incorrect password, try again, or incorrect credentials. And so many users will submit it like 20 times, and we'll get 20 different variations. I saw where we took the password, the username was bad. We were able to, spray that in the environment, achieve domain admin. We do things from pivoting from internal to cloud. There's just so many advanced tactics that we employ. Another one that's really cool and kind of our baseline now is like anytime there's host compromise and you're hacking a server, we always try to land an implant. That implant is going to dump credentials. It's going to manually pivot throughout the network. So the attack graphs can just get crazy sometimes when you look at them. But we really have come a far way, like you said, from taking an Nmap output and then being able to look at that response, make different decisions based on what ports are open, what services are running, and then what exploits to run. And there's so much to do. if you were to manually do it, it's just tedious just thinking about it. Like bug bounty and those things, it's tedious for me to even go into a bug bounty and like manually do things like that. I need, nuclei or different tools to really make my life easier. So I'm a little bit spoiled, I guess, living in the age now where we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, it's needed, because at one time you didn't have to have as much automation because there really was as much to test, and it's just interesting because whenever I got started in pen testing in 2012, you saw a lot of MS 0867 out there, and usually you saw that environment, you knew that you were going to pwn that machine and you'd get a foothold. So it's crazy how easy it was. It's got more difficult, because now in environment you need to be able to do obfuscation more, and it's still more difficult to get footholds compared to it used to be. So we really definitely need the automation and stuff. And it's really interesting too to see the types of things that are being used for, because prior to coming to Horizon 3, I was working for a company consulting, and a lot of times we had to leverage like password dumps or things found on the dark web to be able to get a foothold on external pen test. Otherwise it was, nearly impossible. And I had a pen test back in 2014, a web app pen test that was vulnerable to SQL injection. I was able to get command line access to the system because it's running XP command shell.
Mm-hmm.
And so just the ease to get the footholds before compared to now, I mean, you just don't see that as much anymore of like SQL injection.
Yeah. There's some crazy exploits, and every day, when new ones come out, because we're always checking Twitter, and that's kind of one of the main spots that I look for vulnerabilities, Twitter or GitHub. And every time I'm on there and there's a new vulnerability and it starts trending, and there's 50,000 servers or however many servers exposed online, you just start looking at some of these exploits and you're like, man, these are complicated. The one I was looking at today was like an off bypass, and you had to figure out the username, and you could do that through certain like RFI, like remote file inclusion, to validate the username. But then you had to also like poison the log file with a certain type of like SSH key so you could authenticate and take different code paths. And it's just kind of crazy, the level that people have to invest to sometimes find these exploits. And sometimes they're really trivial. We see a lot of directory traversals too, where it's just // and it's all over the internet. I think we saw one a couple of months back and found like hundreds of servers online exposed. It's interesting. It's fun though.
Yeah. So for someone who's wanting to get started in offensive security, what would you recommend based on, your experience and your teaching and helping others? So what would you recommend?
Yeah. So with my background, I started off as a teacher with coding for about 5 years, taught that consistently. And then I decided I wanted to get into cybersecurity. I think one of the most important things is, of course, having some kind of baseline foundation, right? There's a lot of different courses and things online like Udemy, or different videos, things on YouTube, podcasts like this one that you can always be listening to or watching. So I think the first thing is, well, one, having a passion for it. Once I realized that I really was enjoying cybersecurity, breaking servers, there's so many different aspects. I think you have to find what you like, what you're interested in. If it's blue team, defense, or all the many other roles that are in cybersecurity. Once you've figured that out, start building that foundation and start consuming yourself with the material that those professionals use. I was lucky to be able to surround myself with people like Tony or Zach, Naveen, some of our other engineers and everything who have a lot more experience. So I use that. But if you don't have direct friends or a group of people, podcasts, listen to them all the time in the car or when I'm on a plane. YouTube videos, there's so much free content out there. So you can self-learn that way, but it's a little bit hard, especially if you're kind of just breaking in from nothing. You usually want to be part of some kind of group or something where you can work together on different problems, solving them as a team. Doing it all on your own in your own room might be a little challenging. So you definitely want to make some connections. And then I think it's really just build that foundation, learn, the fundamentals of networking, web applications, whatever it is that are the fundamentals, of course, for your area of cybersecurity. I think it's really just have a passion for one, find a community of people that have that same passion, and then just start learning and start doing it. A lot of times you can get some imposter syndrome doing it, and it's challenging. There's plenty of times I wanted to quit with hacking and just go back to web development. I know all of that. I was an expert in it, and it's like you got to kind of push through it sometimes and embrace the suck, I guess, if you will. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's one of the things people don't realize too when getting into, you know, offensive security, that it's not easy. It's, in my opinion, probably one of the more difficult areas of cybersecurity, because there's not always a book or course to do this specific thing. Whereas if you're managing firewalls, you can find pretty much everything you need to find out there. And also that's because a lot more people are doing it. So I think that's one of the things people don't take in consideration. So anyone trying to learn this, just keep trying. The more you see things over and over again, you watch a video on the same subject, maybe someone explains it different and you get it better. And just like Noah said, find some groups of people to be around to kind of help you with that, because it's difficult, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah. And that's the big thing too, is it is challenging and there's so much competition. And I think a lot of people, they want to get into it and, you try to learn some of these concepts and they're just completely foreign to you. They don't make any sense. When I first learned about encryption, I was like, so it's all math, I had to figure out how everything works. And that's one of the big things. And sometimes you don't learn it with the first instructor. And like you said, you got to hear it from many different people, the same thing, and kind of drill it into your head. If you want to be a professional in cybersecurity, you really got to invest a professional amount of time.
So, with your development background, would you recommend someone learning to code or script if they're wanting to be an offensive security professional?
Absolutely. In regards to offensive security, it makes sense because all of the exploits are scripts, right? So a lot of them are either Python scripts, which we see a lot, YAML, which is like nuclei and nuclei templates. Metasploit is Ruby. Then there's Go exploits. There's all kinds of different languages and different types of vulnerabilities too. And you really can't hack anything unless you understand it. And if you're hacking a web application, you need to understand how web applications work. Maybe go build your own, attack it, see what you learn building it, do a simple tutorial. But you do have to definitely learn that foundation. There's a lot of students where I don't think that you have to become like a master programmer by any means, but you do need to be able to look at code, read it, and say, this is an if statement. If this is going to happen, then this code's going to run, at least basics, and kind of just jump in there and start playing around with it. And if you struggle with your scripting, ChatGPT saves me all the time. I just throw it at ChatGPT and ask it questions. And, it works out well for me because I'm able to at least define what I want ChatGPT to do. But there's plenty of tools. There's plenty of ways to kind of get your foot wet, jumping in the hack the box or other capture flags, trying scripting, so many different things. Just kind of find what you're interested in, though.
So what do you, as far as credentials go, degrees or certifications, do you think those are required?
I think that there's definitely, as far as the job market or the cybersecurity market, there is a level of competition. And so I saw a lot of students come out of a cybersecurity boot camp, and their goal at the end was to get certified ethical hacker, so CEH, or Security Plus. It was Security Plus. So that was their goal. And Security Plus is kind of regarded, I guess you could say, in the industry as more of an entry level one. I think obtaining certificates is helpful. I would not become a certificate junkie. I've only obtained one in cybersecurity, and that's OSCP, just because I heard everybody talking about that one the most. And I thought that would be enough to satisfy it. The other thing, though, that's really important is not just certificates, but experience. And so getting some kind of experience, whether that's participating in a bug bounty or doing other things, like there's a good value to doing bug bounties or not bug bounties, hack the box and things. you're like in a controlled environment, but it's also fun to break out of that controlled environment of learning and really just see what's on the internet. Surf the internet, look at what's trending. There's a lot of different ways, I guess, you could get into it for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things. And I know there a lot of times there's kind of confusion around what certifications to get and stuff, but it's, like you said, the OSCP, I think that's a good one. It's seen one of the things I've kind of seen and experienced, and this has been a while back, that I've seen some companies that if they required a CEH, that was for a team that wasn't directly doing pen testing. It was just for security professionals to understand, how threat actors work to be better in their job. And then OSCPs for something directly in offensive security. But there's just so much content and stuff out there these days too, on YouTube and Udemy, and just trying to figure out what is good. And that kind of goes back to you saying, surround yourself by people. If you got someone that can help you vet what's good or what's not, because when you're getting in this to begin with, all it takes someone knowing a little bit more than you to convince you that their course is good, and it may not be.
Yeah. And I think staying with ones that are reputable, that have industry recognition. OffSec. I really like OffSec. I did the OSCP, and I did a tech talk on it. Actually, it's on YouTube, called Journey to OSCP. I just thought that one was really good. Like, you had to pick a certificate eventually, one that looks challenging, one that's going to bring you value, and hopefully you can get your employer to pay for it, and just dive in on it. And so when I did the OSCP, they had a Discord with all the other students, teaching assistants. You got to start talking to those people when you get stuck on a box, and you have to read everything, and there's so much content, and it's kind of like, just got to pick something and kind of settle in, follow that, and then you'll just start to learn. And as you start learning, it creates this more of a snowball effect, and you might have more knowledge of what you're kind of trying to go into. I mean, I think in general, HR or companies that are hiring, they want to see some kind of level of either experience or certification, or some kind of showcase of your passion, you building your portfolio. So a lot of times what I would tell students on web development side is like, go build web applications, go build something that solves a problem in your life or is fun and cool. And so a lot of times they would build them and they would just demo them to people. So maybe you build your own phishing login page, or credential harvester, or some other tools, kind of putting it out there on the internet, just showing that you're passionate. I think that as long as you do that, you'll be good. Another thing is just being persistent, especially breaking in the cybersecurity. You have to be persistent, and the first role is always the hardest to get. Once you get the first one, you get experience, it becomes a lot easier. So you just kind of have to get creative and really play out your strengths.
So for anyone that's wanting to do the OSCP, you have any tips?
As far as tips, I mean, go through the book. They have like all these exercises and chapters of like, we're going to teach you hash cracking. We're going to teach you privilege escalation. We're going to teach you SQL injection. I went through that entire book and did like every single activity. They give you bonus points, so it's optional. But I felt like if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have, been as successful with it, because you learn their mindset. They teach you a lot of different approaches that you may or may not be aware of. And then really, I just kind of spoke to a lot of the students on Discord, and the mentors. They don't ever really give you the answer. They give you subtle hints and try to lead you there. So using that was really nice as well. And then I really just tried to have a mindset of like, I'm going to do one box a day. So the goal was to always get, the low privilege user and then the high privilege user, one of those a day if I could. Some days not so much, but other days get 3 or 4. So kind of, I guess, create goals that are attainable and stick to them.
So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
I mean, in general, it's just find what you're passionate about and make sure you're in that. Being in offensive security, I feel like I've really found something that I'm passionate about. I really loved web development and software engineering, but there's so many different things out there. The world's always changing. Technology is fascinating. There's so many awesome things you can learn or do. I would just encourage everybody to find what you're passionate about. Go out there, try it. It might be tough. Anything worth tough, getting is worth it, right? So, and then, also thanks, Phil, for having me on and
you're welcome.
kind of tell my story.
Yeah, it was good to get to know a little bit more about you. We haven't got to speak to each other yet, so it's good to speak with you and kind of hear your story, how you got started. It's pretty interesting. It's always cool to hear that, and people's stories on how they got started, and then hear people's views on whether they think coding is required or not. Because I've seen some people that are really good that don't code, but I've seen some people that are really good that code, and it just seems like sometimes when it comes to the coding decision whether to do it or not, the people that are really at a high level in the industry are able to write their own tools and stuff. So it's very cool to hear your opinions and hear your story.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for having me, and
thanks for joining me. It's I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be on, and I'm sure the people listening will get some good out of this. Hopefully some people that are developers that hear this, that's kind of wanting to make a change, and that kind of gives them something to try. Because a lot of times you see people that have a development background and they go into AppSec or something. So this shows that there's other options out there besides AppSec if you're a developer aspiring to be in cybersecurity.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to The Philip Wiley Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Philip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Philip Wiley. Until next time.